We made it to another new church year. Yay, us. Today we begin year B, the evangelist Mark's gospel year. We have left Matthew's year A behind us and look forward to Luke's year C to begin November 28th of 2021. With the new year, church year, we also kick off Advent today, the first season of the new church year. Advent contains 4 Sundays that tell us about being aware, having hope, practicing peace, enacting love, and expressing our joy as we approach the celebration of the birth of Jesus. So it seems a bit odd that the church would have chosen a tad on the gloomy side readings today. The sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. So, what was the church thinking? It was a bit
Good question.
disappointing, actually. But disappointment leads to the question why? Why the doom and gloom to begin a new year? Did you realize that every church year not only begins with stories of the eschaton, the end times, but the church year just left behind ends with that story as well? For instance, 3 weeks ago, we heard Matthew telling us essentially the same story we heard today. Matthew used the parable of the 10 bridesmaids awaiting the bridegroom with their lamps. Only 5 would be well prepared with the light needed to escort the bridegroom home. The other 5 were left in the dark. The prepared bridesmaids brought light, whereas the 5 without lamp oil brought gloom. Today, in Mark's more concise writing style, we just heard of a man who left his slaves in charge while he was away, but they should be alert for his return. This time of year, pre and post new church years, A, B, or C, we are cautioned to be aware or beware, to be ready, to keep or to stay awake, to be on guard, and to be or keep alert, to be ready with light to brighten the dark times and to light the beginning of better times, a new time, a new year. Advent is a time of dark and light. It is a time of hope, peace, joy, and love. Advent is a time of change from old to new, from old ways to new ways, as we add one more candle each week to lighten more brightly the way for us. Let me tell you a story of Mr. Monroe in Advent. Mr. Monroe was a trip. He was my children's third-grade teacher. My children loved him. He was outrageous, creative and funny and fair, and had enormous energy. For several years, my husband Bob and I and the children were invited to Mr. Monroe's Advent party. Mr. M didn't like all the phony baloney that he saw in all the Christmas buying, but he loved decorating his apartment and his fabulous tree. So he hosted this party in Advent, and those of us who were so blessed got to go. And time marched on. The children grew up. Teresa went to college. My son Bob was in an upper level high school, and we still attended the Advent party. But at this one, Mr. M was wearing rubber gloves because he had cut his hand preparing the food for the party. We thought nothing of it until we heard the rumor that he had AIDS. So I wrote him a note and said that if there was anything he needed, just to let us know. On Christmas Day, in the evening, he called. The woman who usually took him to hospital was away, so would we take him? He was in pain, and Bob and I went. Mr. M was scared because he did not know what the trouble was, but at least when in hospital, he wasn't alone in pain, and there they could find out what the cause was. It was a gallbladder attack, and it was also the beginning of the end. He was never well enough to work or feel good again. His life became a succession of hospital stays. 2 days before his death, his parents arranged to have him flown back to New England with a medical escort. He died at his parents' home, his final wish. Mr. Monroe shared his lights with us, his joy and skill in his teaching craft, his joy from celebrating Christmas his way and sharing it with others, in his gratitude when I would take him communion at the hospital as he was finishing his days. He was both darkness and light. He rather embodied Advent, didn't he? Advent is a time when there is a slip sliding between dark and light, despair and hope, discord and peace, anger and love, grief and joy. Our end of church year gospel readings and our beginning year ones as well point us to seeing light, but also point out that there is darkness too. Every year will bring us both. I look to this extraordinary year of 2020 and I see light in dark. Quite literally, we had our darkness on September 9th, when the smoke that turned our world in orangey gray. We have our COVID crises actually, current one worse than ever. We have the racial unrest that makes us wonder if we will ever be able to love one another as brothers and sisters. We seem to take small steps to the light and then steps backward into old ways of distrust. And though the election is settled, it seems, the mood isn't light, is it? There is a darkness in the worry about the challenges that lie ahead, mostly regarding how divided our nation is. With all the darkness that this year has brought us, I, and I hope you too, am amazed at the light also. 1 year ago, we could never have imagined doing church services online. We would have thought it impossible. Yet here we are, every Sunday, worshiping with each other like we've never done before. We even have dedicated instrumentalists in our choir, who we watch every Sunday like we were never able to because we had our backs to them before. To think that this new way of worship is light is to minimize its joy. This new light is a flood lamp. When COVID is finally behind us, we can provide possibilities for worship beyond in-church worship that we didn't think of before. Worship for those who cannot come on Sunday, parents with sick children, those who want to worship but must isolate because of health issues, and those who want to do church, but getting there just seems too much today. To me, this is light out of the dark way we used to do things. That old way was holding us back. For myself, my prayer life has taken on new life. Compline, morning prayer, and Bible study with St. Paul's were never contemplated before COVID isolated us, and ironically, now brought us together online. Once a week at their 7 p.m. and my 4 p.m., I am an evening prayer with the parish in West Virginia that comforted me in morning prayer after Bob died. Seeing those folks again is a great joy to me. When COVID threatened to isolate the church, causing a darkness, we met it with the light of all sorts of online, creative praying together. I hope we will look back at the years 2020 and 2021 as being an Advent, a time of darkness and a time of light. We will begin a new year for the church and for the solar calendar. Know that we can grieve the darkness and we can celebrate the joy of life in its time. Hope, peace, love, and joy are lighting our future. As each church year yields to the next, and as the next boldly moves forward, the theme of the gospel texts are near the same. Light and dark, following the end of this time of the shortest and darkest days of the year, and the beginning of the time of longer and brighter days that follow the winter solstice. We move forward with increasing light guiding us forward. Hope is a guide. Peace is a guide. Love is a guide. And joy, yes, joy is a guide. Amen.